The painting in front of me was a fractured symphony of faces, shards of light slicing through a family portrait as if someone had taken a hammer to memory itself. I'd been staring at it for nearly 10 minutes, maybe longer, letting the museum's soft February light wash over me. Retirement had been complicated. Some days I felt I had earned rest. Other days I felt I had simply aged out of usefulness. The painting somehow captured both truths at once: beauty broken, order disrupted. Portland winters had always carried a heavy grayness, a kind of quiet that settled into your bones. But inside the museum, the Portland Museum of Modern Art, everything felt clean and deliberate. No dust, no noise, no chaos, just curated silence and the weight of other people's interpretations. I'd come alone. I often did. Living with my daughter Blanche and her husband Stuart had made solitude feel precious. It wasn't that I disliked them, though Stuart's presence had always grated on me. It was simply that I wasn't used to living under someone else's roof. My late wife Martha would have laughed and said I needed the company, but Martha wasn't here anymore. And without her, even shared houses felt empty. This morning over breakfast, Blanche had brought up downsizing again. "Just think about it, Dad," she'd said brightly, sliding butter across toast, as if moving me into a retirement facility or tiny apartment was as casual a suggestion as trying a new brand of yogurt. I'd told her I'd think about it. I hadn't meant it, but all of that was before the man appeared beside me. He didn't approach in the normal way, not with footfall, not with presence, but rather emerged like a figure stepping through a curtain, suddenly existing where nothing had been a moment before. He positioned himself beside me, shoulder almost parallel, gaze fixed on the same painting. His voice came softly, a mild tone made for blended crowds in lecture halls. "The composition in this piece is remarkable, don't you think?" A normal museum comment, harmless, directed at no one in particular. But then his hand, the briefest brush, pressed something into my palm, a folded square of paper, crisp edges, almost warm from his pocket. I froze for half a second. Had I misread the gesture? Was this some museum pamphlet or QR code for an audio guide? Then I felt the deliberate pressure of his fingers, the way they curled the paper into my hand with intention. And he spoke again, voice still casual, still audible to the small cluster of visitors nearby. "The way the light fractures through the frame, it makes the whole family look like they're splitting apart." It was the sort of thing a person says when they want to be noticed speaking but not noticed acting. Only then did I open my hand slightly and read the small message inside. "Stay calm and follow me." My heart jumped in my chest. Decades on the bench, 30 years of listening to liars, criminals, desperate men, had taught me to keep my face neutral even when thunder rolled beneath my ribs. The man leaned closer, his lips hardly moving. "The man in the corner of the hall is watching you. Don't turn quickly." Every instinct I had screamed to look, to snap my head around and identify the threat. But instinct is rarely a judge's friend, and the habit of keeping composure, keeping presence, kept me still. I inhaled slowly, pretending to study the brushstrokes on the painting. Who watches a retired judge, I thought, and why? Finally, I shifted my weight and let my gaze drift casually across the gallery. I pretended I was simply appreciating the space, the marble floors, the overhead skylights, the hushed crowd. Then I saw him, at first only a silhouette, a tall figure partially hidden behind a marble column, head bowed slightly, phone pressed to his ear. But his eyes, those eyes were fixed on me like a camera lens, and my stomach dropped. Stuart, my son-in-law, the man who had kissed my daughter goodbye this morning before leaving for Seattle on business. The man who was clearly nowhere near Seattle. He wasn't talking on his phone. He was pretending while watching me. I felt my chest hollow out, air thinning, nerves tightening the way they do right before a verdict is read. The stranger beside me, sensing the shift, whispered again, "Don't turn back to look at him. Don't draw attention. Follow my lead." I kept my voice barely audible. "Who are you?" The man angled his body as though discussing the painting with me, his expression calm. "Private Detective David Chen," he whispered. "Your daughter Cora hired me." Cora, my youngest, the quieter one. The one who moved to Eugene years ago after a fight with her sister. The one who still called me every week. She'd hired a detective to watch whom, me or them. David touched my elbow lightly, not a grip, just a guide, and began walking away from the painting. I followed, my heart pounding a beat behind every step. We moved naturally, like two museum goers shifting from one exhibit to another. Visitors drifted around us, unaware of the small storm gathering beneath my ribs. As we approached the contemporary wing, David angled us toward a door marked staff only. A security guard looked up, but David flashed a credential so quickly I barely registered it. The guard nodded and went back to his tablet. We slipped through. The change was immediate. Gone were the polished floors and curated spaces. The staff corridor was concrete, utilitarian, smelling faintly of dust and cleaning chemicals. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. David walked faster now, urgency slipping through the cracks of his otherwise calm demeanor. He opened a stairwell door and stepped aside for me. To enter, inside the air was cooler, metallic, tinged with paint fumes. Then he turned to face me fully. "Your daughter Cora hired me 3 weeks ago," he said quietly, pulling a thin folder and a business card from his jacket. The card was simple. David Chen, Private Investigations, licensed and bonded. "Why?" I asked, hearing the hardness in my own tone. "Because she noticed something off about your eldest daughter's behavior." "Off?" My voice sharpened. "Blanche?" David didn't flinch. He simply opened the folder and held it out for me to see. The first photo was time-stamped. Blanche and Stewart entering an office building I didn't recognize. David spoke evenly, his tone shifting into the efficient cadence of a man used to delivering hard truths. "They visited this attorney 4 times in the past 2 months. He specializes in elder law, competency declarations, guardianship proceedings." I stared at the picture. My daughter's face, bright and focused. Stewart's hand on her arm. A united front. "They're building a case to declare you mentally unfit," David said. My breath stalled. Not a gasp, not shock, something colder. I'd heard those words thousands of times in courtrooms. Incompetent. Unfit. Unable to manage one's own affairs. Legal terms used to strip away a person's autonomy, their rights, their voice. Now aimed at me. Another photo. Blanche and Stewart outside a medical building. Another, Stewart photographing my office from the hallway. Another, documents on a cafe table, both of them leaning in, discussing something intently. "They've been recording conversations where you allegedly forget things," David continued. "They've been tampering with items in your home, misplacing things to create the appearance of cognitive decline." My knees weakened slightly. I found the stairwell wall and steadied myself. 3 months, David said, systematic, controlled, building a narrative of incompetence. I thought of all the little moments, Blanche asking if I remembered things I never said, Stewart pointing out mistakes I hadn't made, my office seeming off, papers not where I'd left them, keys moved, glasses lost then found in ridiculous locations. They had been staging everything. I felt the betrayal in my teeth, in my jaw, in the tightness behind my eyes. I whispered, "What did they gain?" David pulled out a financial spreadsheet. "Your house is worth $850,000. Stewart owes $120,000 in debt. Blanche has $45,000 in credit cards. They've evaluated everything, your pension, your savings, your retirement accounts. Not family, not loved, just assets. Assets to seize. They want guardianship," David said. "It gives them full control over your finances." My voice dropped to a judge's register. Low, controlled, lethal. "And Cora?" "She suspected something months ago," David said. "She didn't want to confront them without proof. She said you'd know what to do." I swallowed hard. My youngest daughter had seen the truth from miles away, and I, living under the same roof, had missed it entirely. "I need to call someone," I said. "Your attorney?" David asked. "Yes, Marcus Reed." David nodded. "Then go home. Act normal. They can't know you're aware of anything." He handed me a small flash drive. "Everything is documented," he said. "The audio, video, photos, financial trails, doctor's background. Enough to bury them. Use it wisely." I closed my fingers around the drive. It felt heavier than it should, like a weapon. Keep watching them, I told him. Yes, sir. We exited through different doors. I walked out through the museum's public entrance like any other old man enjoying an afternoon of culture. The Portland air felt colder now, the light grayer. My car waited in the underground garage. I slid David's folder beneath the passenger seat, hidden but accessible. The 20-minute drive home stretched into an eternity. My mind calculated strategies, timelines, courts, judges, precedents. They wanted to weaponize the law against me. They had forgotten who taught half the attorneys in this town how to wield it. I pulled into the driveway. Lights glowed warmly through the kitchen window. Blanche stood inside, chopping vegetables. Stuart leaned against the counter, laughing at something on his phone. My home, my family, my betrayers. I practiced the expression I needed. Soft, tired, pleasant. The expression of a man who suspected nothing. The front door opened before I reached for the handle. Dad, you're home, Blanche said, smiling warmly. So warmly, so falsely. I stepped inside, and dinner began. I didn't sleep that night. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet where you start hearing your own heartbeat like a hammer against your ribs. I sat in my study with the lights off, only the gun of the computer screen illuminating the piles of old documents scattered across the table. Every line, every signature, every hidden clause suddenly looked different, like they were all part of a puzzle I had never bothered to assemble. My lawyer's words kept echoing in my skull. Sir, there's something you need to see immediately. I had assumed it was about the property dispute or the account notifications my son kept brushing off. I never imagined it would be about something far darker, something that could unravel my entire family. When dawn finally crawled in through the window, pale and cold, I made myself a cup of instant coffee and poured it straight into the sink. My hands were shaking too much to hold the cup anyway. Exactly 7:10 a.m. The doorbell rang. I didn't need to check the camera. My lawyer never arrived early unless it was something catastrophic. I opened the door. He stepped inside, his tie crooked, his face pale, his briefcase clutched too tightly. Where's the letter? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed the door behind him, locked it, then double-locked it. Only then did he pull out an envelope, a small, yellow, unassuming envelope. But the moment I touched it, something inside my chest tightened. It was my wife's handwriting, my dead wife's handwriting. The name on the front, to be opened only if something goes wrong. I stared at it so long that my vision started to blur around the edges. Where did you get this? I whispered. From your son's house, my lawyer said, hidden inside a folder labeled insurance papers. But what's inside this letter changes everything. The room suddenly felt smaller, or maybe it was the pressure behind my eyes building up. My lawyer sat across from me and opened his laptop. Before you read it, he said, you need to understand something. Your son, he didn't only forge her signature. He may have done much more. My pulse stopped for a beat. What do you mean? He turned the laptop toward me. A video, just a thumbnail, a blurry frame of my wife sitting at her old writing desk, her hands folded, her face riddled with exhaustion I never realized she carried. Click play, he whispered. My finger hovered over the trackpad, trembling. Then I pressed it. The screen flickered alive. My wife appeared, looking directly into the camera, her eyes swollen like she'd been crying for hours. David, she began, her voice cracking. If you are watching this, then something happened to me. And if something happened to me, I want you to know the truth. But she wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking to him, to our son. My lungs constricted painfully. She continued, wiping tears from her cheeks. I trusted you. I did everything for you. I covered for your debts. I hid your mistakes. But what you did last time crossed a line. If anything happens to me, if I disappear or fall sick or, God forbid, die suddenly, I want your father to know the truth. My hands went numb. She wasn't recording this for sentiment. She was recording it as evidence. David, she whispered, if you ever use my name, my signature, or my identity again to take money that isn't yours, then you are not my son anymore. The video shook as she leaned forward. "And if you ever threaten me again like you did last night, I will expose everything." The screen froze there, her face, her fear, her final warning. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until my lawyer touched my arm. "There's more," he said hoarsely. More? I wasn't sure my heart could take more. He opened the envelope slowly, carefully, like it was a bomb. Inside was a folded letter, thin, fragile, stained slightly at the corner. My wife's handwriting again. "If you are reading this, I'm already gone." My chest tightened. My lawyer cleared his throat. "She wrote this 2 weeks before she died." The room tilted a little. I sat down quickly, gripping the edge of the desk. My lawyer handed me the letter. My fingers felt cold as I unfolded it. The words blurred for a moment before coming into focus. "David, if you're reading this, that means whatever I feared has already happened. Our son, he is not the boy you think he is. He has changed, and not for the better. You must look into the money transfers. You must check the account I told you about, the one ending in 0451. And most importantly, he forged my signature last month. He swore he wouldn't do it again. He cried, he begged, he promised. But I found proof hidden under his bed, a fake document, a withdrawal slip, my name signed in your handwriting style. He practiced it, over and over, on sheets of paper he burned in the backyard. David, if I die suddenly, or if something happens to me that can't be explained, don't trust him. Investigate everything. And remember, I love you. I always did. Please don't let him destroy what's left of our family. Anna." My vision darkened around the edges. The room spun. My hands shook so violently that the letter slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf. My wife hadn't died peacefully. She had died afraid. And my son, my own son. I felt something break inside me. Something heavy, something old, something I had carried for years without even realizing. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then my lawyer finally said, "You need to sit down before I show you the last part." "The last part?" I croaked. He nodded. There was a second video. He pressed play. This one was shorter, grainier, recorded at night. My son's voice filled the room, angry, aggressive, threatening. "Mom, stop telling Dad everything. If you don't listen, I swear." The video cut abruptly. Silence. My lawyer exhaled shakily. "That file was recovered from the hidden folder your son tried to delete." I didn't speak. I couldn't. The rage inside me wasn't the loud kind. It was silent, deadly, cold. I stood up slowly, my jaw clenched so hard I felt my teeth grind. "What do you want to do?" my lawyer asked carefully. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since my wife's funeral, I knew exactly what to do. "Prepare everything," I whispered. "It's time he learns who he's dealing with." And in that cold, bright morning, holding the letter that proved everything my wife tried to warn me about, I made a decision that would change the rest of my life and end my son's world forever. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own blood. I stood in my study long after my lawyer left, staring at the letter on the floor. The sun had climbed higher, lighting up the room with a soft warmth that didn't match the coldness inside of my chest. It was almost mocking, like daylight had no idea that my world had already started collapsing. The clock ticked. Tick, tick, tick. Every second felt like a countdown. I picked up the letter, slowly, tracing my wife's handwriting with trembling fingers. The loops, the curves, the familiar way her A leaned slightly to the right. It felt like touching a ghost who had tried to warn me, but I was too blind to see it. I whispered her name. "Anna." The pain hit me like a wave. Anger, regret, guilt, confusion all tangled together until my breath caught in my throat. She carried fear and I never noticed. She hid threats and I never asked why. She recorded videos in secret and I never wondered what pushed her to such extremes. I failed her. The realization was heavy enough to bring me to my knees, but self-blame quickly transformed into something sharper, colder, stronger. Purpose. I stood up, wiped my face, and walked to the safe in the wall. Not the main one, the hidden one behind the photo frame, where I kept things even my wife didn't know about. I turned the dial. The safe clicked and opened. Inside were documents no one had seen in years. Old bank records, property transfers that only I had access to, proof of every asset, account, and investment I'd made in the last 30 years. If my son thought he could steal what I built, he didn't know me at all. I gathered everything and placed it on the desk. The plan that had been forming in the back of my mind since the moment I watched those videos slowly took shape. Every step mattered. Every detail mattered. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was justice. For my wife. And for the man I used to be. I worked for hours sorting documents, comparing signatures, printing copies, highlighting dates my son thought no one would notice. I connected timelines when my wife confronted him, when money disappeared, when she wrote the letter, when her health declined. It all lined up, every part of it, and it painted a picture far darker than I imagined. At noon, my phone buzzed. A text from my son. "Dad, coming over at 3. We need to talk." I laughed, an empty, humorless sound. He had no idea what he was walking into. 3 o'clock p.m., the confrontation that wasn't. He arrived exactly on time, not because he respected me, because he needed something. That's how he operated. He only showed up when he was cornered, desperate, or wanted to manipulate me into opening my wallet. I watched him from the window as he stepped out of his barn, wearing expensive sunglasses and a smile full of confidence. A confidence that came from believing I was still the same naive father he could trick. Not today. When he rang the bell, I didn't answer immediately. I let him wait, let him feel uncertainty, let him wonder. Finally, I opened the door. He walked in like he owned the place, not noticing or ignoring the coldness in my eyes. "Dad," he said quickly, "we have to talk about—" "Sit," I cut him off. My voice surprised even me. It was steady, firm, emotionless. He frowned but obeyed. The moment he sat on the couch, his eyes fell on the stack of documents on the table. His face changed, just for a second. But it was enough. The flicker of panic was unmistakable. "Where'd you get those?" he asked, trying to sound annoyed instead of terrified. But his foot started tapping. His fingers twitched. His breathing tightened. All signs of guilt. I sat across from him, leaning forward. "Tell me," I said calmly, "why did your mother record a video addressing you?" He froze, then forced a laugh. "What video?" I opened my laptop and pressed play. The moment his mother's voice filled the room, he stopped moving. It was like someone poured ice water into his veins. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He didn't speak. He just stared. When the video ended, the silence that followed was suffocating. I folded my hands. "Do you want to explain?" He swallowed hard, eyes darting between the screen and the documents. "Dad, listen. Mom was confused. She wasn't well. You know she was stressed." "Don't," I said sharply. He shut up instantly. The truth was, I never raised my voice at him before, not once in his life. And that was my biggest mistake. My silence, my softness, my blind love, it all taught him one lesson. Dad will always forgive me. But not today. Never again. I pushed a printed sheet across the table, a withdrawal slip, forged, and the signature, my wife's, was copied almost perfectly. Almost, but not perfectly. He stared at it, then at me. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain how you stole from her?" His face hardened. The fear disappeared, replaced with arrogance and entitlement. "Dad, come on, that is just money. You have plenty. Mom didn't need all that." The words hit me like a hammer. Just money, Mom didn't need it. That was the moment I realized something. My son didn't just make a mistake. He was fundamentally broken. "I'm giving you one chance," I said quietly. "Tell me the truth. All of it." He clenched his jaw. "Fine, I took the money, but I had to. My business was collapsing. And you wouldn't help me." "I helped you dozens of times," I said. "Your mother helped you too. She took loans to cover for you. She sold her jewelry. She lied for you." He looked away. "And in return," I added, my voice shaking with restrained rage, "you forged her signature, threatened her, and now you're pretending like you did nothing wrong." He stood up abruptly. Dad, stop dramatizing everything. This is not a big deal. Mom, don't you say her name. My tone changed, cold, sharp, dangerous. He froze mid-sentence. That's when I saw it. His facade cracked, the confidence shattered, because for the first time in his life, he knew I wasn't on his side. He sat down slowly, his hands trembling. Dad, what are you going to do? I stared at him for a long time. Then I answered with the calmest, most terrifying voice I have ever used. I'm going to finish what your mother started, the beginning of the end. He didn't understand what that meant. Not yet. He tried to talk his way out of it, tried to fake tears, tried to play the victim. He said he was stressed. He said he was depressed. He said he was confused. He said he didn't mean to hurt anyone. Nothing worked, because lies don't work on a man who already knows the truth. When he finally left the house, slamming the door behind him, I felt something strange. Relief. Not because the confrontation was over, but because I had finally woken up. For years, I thought protecting him was love, but real love is protecting the innocent from the guilty. And now that I had evidence, proof, videos, a letter, documents, and a plan, it was only a matter of time before the storm hit. A storm he created, a storm he deserved. The house felt different after he left. Not quieter, not calmer, but hollow. Like some invisible thread had snapped, and the weight of it finally settled into the furniture, the walls, the air. Everything felt heavier. Even the light drifting through the window seemed faded, tired, like it was mourning something. Perhaps it was mourning the father I used to be. I sat back at my desk and looked at the war zone of documents spread across it. Dozens of papers, files, screenshots, copies of bank statements, forged documents, the withdrawal slip, my wife's letter, her video, his video, evidence, unavoidable, unshakable, undeniable. And yet, the hardest part wasn't confronting him. The hardest part was accepting the truth. My son was capable of things I once believed impossible. Things that made my blood run cold. Things that forced my wife, my gentle, soft-spoken wife, to record messages in secret. Things that left her living in fear. And now I had only one mission: bring everything into the light. But I knew my son wasn't going to go down quietly. He was too arrogant, too desperate, too proud. He believed one thing with every fiber of his being: Dad will protect me. That belief was the shield he hid behind every time he committed another sin. And I was the fool who held the shield up. No more. I picked up my phone and called the only person in the world besides my lawyer who truly understood the stakes: Detective Howard Marlin, a man I once helped years ago when his sister's small business was collapsing. I gave her an investment loan without conditions. He never forgot it. David, he answered on the second ring, his voice steady. I heard you were looking for me. I found the videos, I said. Silence. Then a deep, heavy breath. I'm on it, he said. I'm coming, Alfred. Don't go anywhere. The storm gathers. Detective Marlin arrived 20 minutes later. Tall, broad-shouldered, and with the kind of expression that told you he'd seen far darker things than the world should ever allow. He stepped inside, took one look at the documents on the table, and let out a quiet whistle. You weren't exaggerating, he said. No, I replied. This is only half of it. I showed him the videos. He watched them without blinking. No reaction, no comment. But when the second video, the one with my son shouting, threatening, furious, ended, he rubbed his jaw slowly. You have enough here, he said carefully, to open a serious criminal case. I nodded once, and that's what I want. He studied me for a long moment. You're sure, once we start, there's no turning back? I looked down at the letter in my hands. The ink was faded, the paper wrinkled, the handwriting trembling. The last message my wife ever left me. I'm sure, I whispered. He nodded. Then we do this quietly, he said. We build the case brick by brick. No mistakes, no leaks, no warnings. Good, I said, because he can't know what's coming. Howard sat across from me, opened his notebook and said, Tell me everything from the beginning. And I did. Every secret my wife kept, every lie my son told, every time I bailed him out, every time he made promises he didn't keep, every strange incident around the time my wife died. When I finished, the sun had already begun sinking in the sky. The room was dim, painted with golden orange shadows. Howard closed his notebook. "This wasn't just forgery," he said. My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "There are patterns here, threats, disappearing money, sudden changes in behavior, fear, secrecy, and the timing of her death." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't imply something you can't prove." "I'm not implying," he said softly. "I'm warning you. If we're not careful, digging into this could expose something much darker." I swallowed. "What do you think he did?" Howard hesitated. Then he said the one sentence I never expected to hear in my life. "I think your wife didn't just die. I think she was pushed." My breath stopped. Literally stopped. The room spun slightly. "Howard," he held up a hand. "I'm not saying it's murder," he clarified. "I'm saying it might not be the peaceful passing you believed it was. At the very least, foul play is possible." My knees felt weak. My vision dimmed. All this time I thought my son stole from her, forged her name, threatened her. I never imagined he could have been the reason she died. My hands shook uncontrollably. Howard stood up and placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "Listen to me," he said. "Don't jump to conclusions. Don't accuse him of anything yet. Let me investigate properly, quietly, thoroughly." "How long will it take?" I whispered. "A week or two," he said. "But during that time, you need to act normal." "Normal?" I asked bitterly. "How do I act normal when I just discovered my son may have caused his mother's death?" Howard sighed. "Because if you don't, he'll run." I stared at him. He was right. My son wasn't stupid. He was cunning, manipulative, calculating. He could sense danger before it arrived. If he even suspected an investigation had started, he'd disappear, move money, vanish into another state, destroy evidence, wipe everything clean. I couldn't let that happen. So I did something I never thought I would need to do. I agreed to pretend, to lie, to smile, to act like nothing happened. "Fine," I said. "What do I do?" "Invite him over again," Howard said. "Act like you forgave him. Tell him you want a fresh start." I felt sick in my stomach. "You're asking me to lie to my son." Howard's expression hardened. "He lied to your wife. He lied to you. He stole from her. He forged her name, and maybe more. So yes, you lie to him. For justice." I exhaled slowly. I nodded. Howard gathered the documents into his folder carefully, leaving only the copies on my desk. "I'll be in touch," he said as he headed for the door. "Stay strong, David." When the door closed behind him, the silence of the house returned. But now the silence felt different. It wasn't empty. It wasn't weak. It wasn't Brad. It was waiting. Waiting for justice, waiting for truth, waiting for the storm to arrive. I picked up my phone. I stared at my son's number. My thumb hovered over the call button. For a moment I hesitated, just a moment. Then I pressed call. He answered instantly. "Dad?" I forced my voice to stay calm. "We need to talk," I said smoothly. "Come over tomorrow. Let's fix this." Silence. Suspicious silence. Then he replied, "Okay, Dad. I'll be there." I hung up, my heart hammered in my chest, because I knew what tomorrow would bring. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, not closure, but a trap. One so carefully constructed that he wouldn't even see the walls closing in until it was too late. For years, I protected him. Now I was hunting him. And this time, I would not miss. Morning arrived with a strange stillness. Not peaceful, not calm, but sharp, like the world itself was bracing for impact. I woke before sunrise, long before my alarm, long before the birds outside began to stir. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, hands wrapped around the mug like it was the only warm thing left in my life. Today would decide everything. Today, the truth would walk into my house wearing the face of the boy I raised. I stared at the front door for a long time, imagining the moment he would appear. Would he smile that familiar, rehearsed smile? Would he be cautious, arrogant, manipulative? Would he look like my son at all? My phone buzzed at 8:03 a.m. On my way. Short, cold, efficient. Exactly the way a guilty man texts the person he thinks he can still fool. I put my phone face down, stood up, and walked into the living room. Then I stopped. The house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories. Images of my wife moving through the rooms, her laptop open on the dining table, her glasses beside the couch, her soft voice calling me for dinner, her laughter echoing through this same hall. I felt something break inside me again, but I held myself together with one truth. Today, she would finally get justice. The arrival at 8:29 a.m., I heard the familiar sound of his car in the driveway. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. Like a man arriving for a meeting he fully expects to control. I watched from the window as he stepped out. Expensive coat, sunglasses even though the sky was gray. Phone in hand, confident, too confident. He walked up the path like nothing had changed, like he still owned the upper hand. I unlocked the door just before he knocked. "Dad," he said warmly, "you look good." I smiled, the kind of smile you learn only after decades in a courtroom. "I've had time to think," I replied. "Come in." He stepped inside, taking a slow look around, as if checking whether anything in the house had shifted. Whether I had shifted, I led him to the dining table. He sat down casually, leaning back, crossing his arms. "So," he said, "we're fixing this, right?" I took a seat across from him. "Yes," I replied, "we're fixing everything." He gave a satisfied nod, like the king had returned to his throne, but he didn't notice the small light blinking on the bookshelf camera. He didn't notice me tapping the record button on my phone. He didn't notice the silent text I'd sent 5 minutes ago. He's here. Detective Marlin was already parked down the street. "The confession trap," I began gently. "I want us to understand each other," I said. "Honesty. No more secrets." He lifted his eyebrows, pretending confusion. "Secrets? Dad, I already explained." "No," I said softly, "not explanations. Truth." He swallowed once. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Fine, you want honesty? The money. I needed it. I told you that. You forged her name." His jaw tightened. "Dad, you threatened her." He hesitated, just long enough to betray himself. "She misunderstood," he said. "You know how she was, sensitive." Every muscle in my body went cold. "She was sensitive because you scared her," I wanted to say. "Sensitive because she lived in fear, walking on glass, terrified of your temper." Instead, I said, "And the videos?" He froze, his eyes narrowed. "What videos?" My heart didn't even beat faster this time. I didn't flinch. I didn't tremble. I didn't look away. This time I watched him, really watched him, and he cracked, just a small crack, a flicker of panic in his eyes, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. He knew exactly what videos I meant. "You went through her things," he snapped. "That was private." "So you admit it." He blinked, realizing too late that he'd walked into the first trap. No, I'm saying, Dad, don't twist things. That's why people think you're losing it." I almost laughed. Manipulation, deflection, psychological pressure, the same tactics he'd used on her. "You saw her messages," I said quietly. "Her fear." He opened his mouth, but I lifted a hand. "And I saw yours." His face flushed red, then something in him snapped. "You don't understand anything," he shouted. "She made everything difficult. She refused to help. She refused to trust me. He stopped, realizing what he was admitting. The camera captured everything. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he whispered, "She made me desperate." I stared at him, cold, steady, unmoved. "What did you do the night she died?" His eyes shot up, sharp, alert, terrified. "Don't," he said. "Did you go to her house?" "Dad, stop. Did you argue with her? Please, did you push her?" His face drained of color. He trembled, just barely, but I saw it. I felt the entire room hold its breath. "No," he whispered. "No, I didn't. Dad, I didn't touch her. I just wanted her to sign the papers. She wouldn't. She wouldn't listen. She wouldn't help me. His breathing quickened. I left. I left. She was alive when I left. Every word was being recorded. Every detail was evidence. And then, the moment that sealed his fate, he slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "She forced me to do it. Forced me. Not I never did anything. Not you're wrong. Not she misunderstood. Forced me." A confession wrapped in panic. The front door opened without knocking. My son jumped to his feet, and Detective Marlin stepped inside, badge out, voice firm. "David Grant, you are under arrest for financial fraud, forgery, coercion, and suspicion of involvement in the death of your mother." My son's face twisted with betrayal. "Dad?" he gasped. "You set me up?" I stood, slow, steady, unshaking. "No," I said. "I uncovered what you hid." Two officers followed Marlin in. My son backed away, eyes wild, breath sharp. "Dad, please, you can't do this. I'm your son." He always said that when cornered. Always used the word son like a shield. But not today. "You stopped being my son," I said quietly. "The day you stopped being her son." They cuffed him. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He just stared at me with disbelief so deep it almost broke me. Almost. As they let him out, he whispered, "I hate you." I didn't respond. I waited until the front door closed behind them. Only when the house was silent again, truly silent, did my knees finally weaken. I sat down slowly, hands trembling for the first time that morning. Detective Marlin returned after placing him in the car. He looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen in years. "It's over," he said. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "It just began." "Do you regret it?" I looked around the room where I'd spent so many years trying to protect the wrong person. "No," I said. "I regret not doing it sooner." Howard nodded, and then he handed me something I hadn't expected. My wife's wedding ring, found in her handbag when they reopened her case file. I closed my hand around it, feeling the curve of the metal press into my palm. "I'll make her proud," I whispered. The case would go to trial. The truth would come out. My wife would finally rest, and I would finally begin to heal.